Any other thoughts?
I guess it's important to understand what we are designing for. So is this to increase engagement? Is this to, because Facebook is trying to come up with new priorities now. So understand what are those priorities and what kind of value we're trying to bring to the user. That might not be just, being glued to the screen. Could be maybe something else. Understand what we want to optimize for.
That's a very good point. Let's think of a structure here, and I agree with you, Carla. It's important to know what's the intention and what is the goal of doing this, right? So so the question is, how would you rank Facebook feed posts? All right, so let's think of a structure, right? On how to analyze this question. Now, the first thing is, Carla, you brought this up about, what's the goal of this? But for me, the first thing that I would ask is, well, see, let me start from where I'm coming from. I think that this question is trying to find out whether you are thinking about all the issues that current product managers of the newsfeed actually think about. And they're trying to see whether, how your thought process, how is your thought process to arrive to the same things that they're thinking. So for me, the first question was, what problem is this solving? What problem is ranking solving for the user? And this may be an obvious question, but for me, I don't know. I need to start with that. To start with, okay, what is ranking solving? And then the answer, for this would be, okay, I think that the answer that we're always thinking is, okay, the problem that is solving is to show posts that are relevant to the user. Is there any other answer?
I mean, you'd have to break down relevant, right?
Yeah. I'm going to go there. But at the high level, I think this is what it's trying to do, right? Show posts that are relevant to the user. And then here it comes, why you want to do that? Well, obviously, right? You want people to spend time on Facebook and, as Carla said, glue onto it. Now, the other thing is, okay, so from here on, then I would think, okay, so what is relevant? Let's talk about the users and their preferences. So what is relevant? What is relevant to the users? And here is where, there's a difference between this question and other product design questions. This question is there's no segmentation really, right? Because there are two different kinds of people, and this is asking you about preference of each user. That's what I think. And I think that the way to think about it is to say, okay, this needs to be divided into shared common preferences and then individual preferences. In terms of posts, right? And so there's a common knowledge, that everybody shares. Like, for example, well, some people are going to prefer to see the majority of people post from their friends than from people that they don't know or from a business. So people, they're going to prefer to see posts that are more recent than older, and so on. That's what I call common preferences. And then there are going to be individual preferences, which is like, hey, I really dislike posts that are negative or posts that are about politics. I really dislike this person. I don't want to see posts from that person, and so on. So I think that your solution needs to take into account these two. And then this question is about the post, and the post currently exists. So we need to know about what are the attributes of posts that are going to be evaluated by the users in terms of the preferences. And so, here what I would do is to put a picture of the post and look at all the attributes, that currently has. So it has the user, so this is sort of like who, the source basically, and sometimes it says, the name, whatever, share whatever post. Here has the time. Then you have maybe some media content, maybe you have some text, and here you have the reactions, right? So these are some attributes that are quite visible, right, of this post, and users are going to have preferences based on these attributes, right? So then I will go into analyzing. Okay, so what are the list of common preferences and individual preferences based on these attributes. And the reason why I'm putting this here is because I think they want you to be exhaustive in the way that you think about the different attributes that you need to consider. And so when doing this, then putting the post helps me understand, remind myself of the different types of attributes that I should be listing. And, for example, I was thinking, okay, so what's the source? The source could be of this post. It could be a friend. It could be a business. It could be a friend of a friend. Or it could be me. Maybe I put this post. In terms of content, okay, what are things that I may care about, right? I might care about, is this an original content? Or is it a shared content? Or is it copy and paste? And my interest, I think the general common interest is like this goes down, right? I mean, in general, people are more concerned about their friends seeing posts or original content instead of share. Then when is this, the post, is it recent or is it old? What are the interactions with this post? I might be interested to see, okay, how many interactions and which type, right? Is it share? Are there comments, etc.? And I'll be interested in more quantity of those. Then I'm interested in, is it a public or is it a private post? I may be more interested in a private post than in a public post. And these are sort of like the common ones, the common preferences. But when it comes to individual preferences, now, it comes to other things, like I may have specific friends I care about. Maybe I care about certain topics more. Yeah, and there could be other things. And then there are other common things here that I put. But for example, frequency. frequency that you see the post, or frequency, the person that you see the post. Maybe you don't want to see posts from the same person again and again. So when answering this question, I will go through all this just to show that I'm thinking about all the types of properties that need to be considered in an algorithm to solve these questions. So I would like to get your input on this. Have you guys thought about a different approach? Because I haven't finished, but I just wanted to stop here to get your feedback.
Hi, Malena. This is
Yeah.
Krishna. This is my first time I'm joining this meeting.
Hey, welcome.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, so I went through the video that you have posted on it was a VP talk about how they organize the feed and show the personalized feed as much as they can. And some of the interesting things that I found that we should be taking into account, I think it falls into the individual preferences category.
Yeah.
Where now on Facebook, if you don't like a particular post, you can tag them saying that you don't want to see those kind of posts anymore. And you can block a certain kind of post, or you can block posts coming from a certain sponsored you can probably block some kind of a post which you think are sponsored posts. It could be an advertisement or something like that. Yeah, and I think as the user gets into the system, you have a lot of other data that you can always look into in terms of what are the posts that he basically spends a lot of time on. And I think in the individual preferences, you can, if there is a way to identify that metric and associate that with the existing post and see, if this falls into that category of post that he reads through it completely and shares it, that's probably something that you want to put in there.
Yeah, and I think that would be, I'm thinking that when you mention measuring, that will go under the question. They will ask you, well, how do you know that you're right?
Yeah. I'm only talking from a input point of view on what input should go into coming up with that score, because he talked about score, computing a score based on all these inputs, right? So one of the inputs be the machine learning or AI that we have in the back end about this particular user on, okay, these are the kinds of posts that he seems to be spending time. So that I'm talking that as an input rather than some metric that we would use at the end of our at the end of
time spent on particular post.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, it could be a single metric, or it could be a group of metrics that you can collectively look at and say, oh, this seems to be relevant post based on his past actions, based on his past comments on the post or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. This could be also his comment. They can do basically, what's the right word? The sentiment, right? Comment sentiment.
Yeah, sentiment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. So, at the high level, yeah.
Well, it's Arpana. Sorry, I joined late. The other thing that I was thinking is also like the type of posts. So like event recommendations, posts from the groups that I follow and the pages that I follow. I don't know where they fall here, probably in the source. But that's another kind of thing.
No, here, type of content.
Type. Okay, yeah, that's another thing to consider is like some people might engage more with like group content versus some people are more like event centric. So that's another factor.
That's right. And this should be here also, right? As the individual. So yeah, and so basically, this is just taking it, showing that you are considering all this, right? Shows that you are thinking about everything that your algorithm needs to take care of. But the way to arrive to this, I couldn't arrive to all this list until I actually draw the post, okay? Because I would not be able to remember, right? So I think it's really important to sort of like have a diagram of the post that reminds you of the things that the user is looking at, right? When they're looking at your post on Facebook, you are looking at all these things, and even though you don't realize, right? I don't realize. I immediately look at the person. I immediately look whether it's share or not, but I'm not thinking. It's like, okay, if it's share, I don't care. I just want to reach out. Like that.
Yeah, this was mentioned in the talk as well. He showed that picture and he, wrote down the different things that you would see on a post. It could be a picture of anything else. Yeah, I think that I also agree with you. That's the key. Without that, I think it's very hard to proceed in a very structured or a proper fashion. Yeah.
So when I saw the video, I was like, oh, that's what I was missing, right? And make a distinction here. Usually, this question to me is not a product design question. It's a product experience question. Okay? Why?
Yeah.
Because first of all, let me note this here. The post exists, the product exists, okay, which is a post. Okay, then there is no segmentation here. This is not a product where you find the needs of the segment. You find the segment, prioritize the segment, then you find use cases for the segment, the needs of the segment, and then you find and then you build a solution. That's not this type of question.
One question in that regard. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
Would it be relevant or would it be totally out of context if we, even before we drill down and say that these are the things that we want to do, would it be irrelevant to say that, okay, let's try to understand the different customer segments that we currently have? I mean, of course, Facebook has everyone on it, but maybe they do have a priority on getting certain segment of customers to increase their engagement more. Everyone is there on Facebook, but due to a certain target customer segment, maybe the engagement is more, and maybe they contribute to ad revenues or some other forms of revenues in a more significant way than others. Then, do you think it would make sense to put that in as an observation and say that I would like to understand?
That's a very good. I actually started that way.
Okay.
Then realize that it's a good way to think about it. And realizing, hey, I cannot do it this way, because you start seeing that all these types of segments share the same habits.
It turned out. I mean, it probably turns out that everyone shares the same kind of sentiment.
We can do this exercise here. I think it's important. So, but I just wanted to find out. I'm going to do that in a minute.
Okay.
So the product exists, is a post, but to me, there's really no segmentation that you prioritize. Okay, there's just common shared behavior preferences and individual preferences, and this is really not about. So there's no segmentation. You have the product exists, and it's really about experience. It's about how are you going to improve the experience. Okay, and in this particular case, that means how are you going to take into account preferences. So that's my take on this. But let's go back to users, what you were saying, Krishna. Then let's label some user types just to make sure that, in fact, there's not much difference in terms of how they want to rank. They want to see the posts, prioritize the posts.
I agree. One quick question before we go into that. Maybe I missed that because I joined a little late. So when this question is posed to us in an interview, usually we ask a set of questions, as a follow-up to a question that was posed to us by the interviewer. In this case, what would that questions be? I don't know if we already covered that.
You mean at the beginning, clarifying question.
Yeah, clarifying question to make sure that we understand the context and the goals and objectives, because we do want to understand the goals for every problem that we are trying to solve, right? Or multiple times.
I think that if I had been asked this question, I probably would have asked, okay, so how am I going to rank the posts? And my first question would be, well, do you want me to tell you how I think, a product manager in Facebook should think about it? Because obviously this is solved, right? You guys are doing that. Or do you want me to come up with something, with what I think Facebook does and do something more innovative?
Yeah.
Because obviously they have a solution for this, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the question is to test whether you are able to think like their managers, right? But I would like to clarify that.
That's true, but even when they solved it for the first time, they probably had a broader goal in mind, saying that, okay, we do want to show relevant posts, but what is our bottom line? Like what is that we are trying to achieve by showing more relevant posts to the user? Let's say if we do that and we don't see any increase in user engagement or any associated ad revenue increase associated with it, then I don't know if it makes sense to invest so much in showing the relevant post to the user. I'm just
I see. And this goes back to Carla today, right? So, I mean, one of the things that we've heard recently, right, in the different conferences, is that Facebook is trying to sort of put more focus on the user and what the user wants to see, as opposed to also favor the advertiser or the marketer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it like creating more meaningful social interactions, so that their time spent continues to increase and the monthly active users continues to increase as well.
Yes, so that would be Carla. So Carla, what would you ask then, for clarifying question?
Yeah, sorry, this was Arpana.
Arpana, sorry.
I think the clarifying question would be like, what's the goal you want me to accomplish with the new ranking, right?
Yeah, I would caution about this, because I think that what I would do is to bring a little bit of content to your question.
Sure.
So that they know where we're coming from.
Different take on this, if I can.
Yeah, sure.
I would assume, I would have an hypothesis and say that, okay, I believe that this is the intent behind showing more relevant posts. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
because
you have an opinion, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not a very vague requirement, compared to some other questions that you might be asked, where you probably need a lot of follow-up questions. But in this case, everyone knows what Facebook does. Everyone knows what the uber goal of Facebook is. And I think we just state it explicitly that, okay, I'm going with this hypothesis that this is what the goal is of this exercise. Please let me know if I'm wrong.
Yeah, state hypothesis. That's what I would put here. State hypothesis, and ask for confirmation, right?
Yeah.
Good. And so, Krishna, what would be your question directly? Like, what would you ask? What would you have asked?
Okay. I mean, besides the hypothesis part, or?
No, tell me about your hypothesis. Let's say you are in the interview.
Okay.
And you're going to state your hypothesis, and you're going to ask me whether that's the goal, right? So what do you think is the goal?
Yeah. So I would state to the interviewer that from what I know, Facebook's goal or aim in carrying out this investment or exercise is to increase the user engagement or the customer engagement, and also make sure that I don't know how to put this in words, but ensure that customers always get relevant data or relevant posts when they open their Facebook app.
So my feedback to you on this is that is actually what ranking does, right? That I think that's the obvious thing. To increase engagement. Obviously, they wouldn't be doing this, right? And show what users want to see. But I think where Carla was mentioning, Carla, feel free to jump in. was saying is that, and given what we have known, is that in the past, Facebook not only has, for example, the user, as the main, customer that it has to target their feature for, but they have to consider the marketer, right? Otherwise, they're not getting revenue. So it's a balance. It's a balance, right? So in the past, maybe their algorithm, favor, and I think that's what it does, favor the user, but also the marketer, right?
Yeah.
But given the recent changes, I think the focus is to actually decrease perhaps the priorities of the marketer and increase the priorities of the user. So that would be my question, right? Is this why, is this the focus of doing the ranking?
Okay.
Am I right in this?
Yeah.
I think because Carla was asking about the goals. So I think that would be the question. You put a context into what's happening today and then say, hey, there are these two trade-offs, Has it changed? If that is the case, that means that my solution should really put a lot of focus on what the user wants. And this brings a very interesting point here because we missed a user here, right?
Yeah.
Put the advertiser.
Yes.
And what are their preferences? Very good. I love this. I found something that we forgot. Cool. And we didn't put that. So maybe we should add here, what would be the advertiser preferences? What do you guys think?
So they should get more clicks or conversions.
No, in terms of ranking the
Yeah. I mean to say that's a metric. Like advertisers probably are complaining that they are not getting enough conversions. And I mean, what we do by showing relevant posts, we are trying to match up the advertiser with the right customer or the user.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are lacking behind that in a certain way, then advertisers don't get enough of conversions that they would like to have. So that's what I think can be a goal from an advertiser point of view.
And can we translate that into what the advertiser would prefer Facebook shows the user?
Yeah. So sorry, what was your question?
So
yeah. That I think what you show to the user has a direct correlation with what advertiser ends up getting, through some kind of a conversion or click rate.
Yes.
That's why I think it's relevant from an advertiser point of view as well.
I think to translate what you're saying, you can put it in attributes. Maybe here I would put frequency, but this would be.
That would be a metric.
No, like how frequent, like a tap in the number of advertisements that you see from them. Maybe increase the cap.
Yeah.
Increase it. They want their ads to be shown more. Maybe they want more, more links in the ads, in the posts. I could think of like having more sponsor ads.
Yeah. So those are the means to achieve a certain goal, right?
Well, this is what they would like. So I'm thinking of attributes that advertisers would like to have increased, right? What do they prefer? Well, they would prefer more frequency of their ads to be shown. They would prefer more having more links in the advertisement post and link to their website or whatever. And they would like to have more sponsor ads.
I have a slightly different take on that. I think advertisers, you can correct me, advertisers probably don't care much about how many times we are showing their sponsored links on the page of different users. I think at the end of the day, they care about the results, and that results is always measured from their end. Okay, I have started this ad campaign on Facebook. Before the ad campaign, my revenues was this much, or my click-through rate was this much, and after the ad campaign, it actually increased or stayed the same. So from an advertiser point of view, his metrics would be, or his goal would be, through I have invested this much amount in Facebook. What is the incremental revenue that I'm getting through that channel?
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so maybe they don't care about as much as they don't care about the number of links that you show on the page as much as the ultimate goal, which is basically to increase the revenue through Facebook.
So let's say that you're the product manager, right? Of
Yeah.
this, okay? And I go to you and I'm an advertiser, you're the product manager, and I say what you just said. Hey, I want to see more conversions.
Yeah.
What would you do in terms of ranking the posts to increase those conversions? What would you do?
I think this again goes back to the same problem that we are trying to solve is, okay, we do want to come across as someone who is not promoting advertisers a lot, but at the same time we also want to strike the balance between showing very relevant content to the customers, and also sneaking through some of the promoted posts or pages without being too pushy about too pushy about conversion. So this again, so we do have to analyze those metrics that we take in the back end a little bit more and understand, okay, this with this particular ranking, we are not getting enough clicks for these advertisers. What could be the problem? Why is it the customer is not clicking on these ads or posts and making some conversions for the advertisers?
Okay, let's move on. So, okay, we'll talk about it later. I'm thinking that, the question here is, how would you rank these posts in order to have a certain effect, right? So, and I am, sure that there are algorithms that rank the posts so that there are more conversions for advertisers, okay? And what they're probably doing is probably, showing more advertisements that are relevant to whatever the user wants to see and things like that. And those are decisions that are being made by the algorithm.
Yeah.
Right? And by the product manager says, okay, we're going to put more weight in these posts that are from advertisers, right? So, anyways, let's so where these, the solution is, you are taking basically these attributes that are common share attributes, individual attributes, and advertiser, whatever the attributes that are good for advertisers, into your algorithm, or probably a machine learning one. And so what that would look like, I'm thinking, at the very high level, it's like, so let me put this here. So I'm thinking, I'm sure that they probably have, if I were a product manager, I would have a bunch of people, a lot of people, sort of like telling me which posts they find interesting or more, sort of like the common wisdom, right? So you have your trained posts, right, that are ranked. And then you have your new posts. You will have some kind of machine learning algorithm that sort of does a preliminary pre-rank, right? And sort of there's an issue here. You have more data about the rest of the community than about the individual, right? So for your machine learning algorithm to work, you have to have a lot of data, which is the common wisdom. And then I would put that into a sort of like a filtering area or re-rank based on the individual preferences. So that's the way I'm thinking. I don't know if this is the way they do it, but I would think of a pre-rank stage based on the wisdom of the rest of the community, then use the individual preferences to do the final ranking of the posts. And then, have this, yeah, that would be the final ranking. Any other thoughts?
No, I think this is broadly the right approach. I mean, any post, falls into these two categories,
Right.
and you have different attributes to rank within these categories, and you have to have a composite ranking which takes into account both the individual preferences and also the, the sentiment that it has got from the,
Right.
in the community.
Yeah, and you would have to have an expert to do all this, but I don't think that's the job of the product manager.
So how will we be going into discussing about how we implement this solution? I think you attempted that. I mean, it's really good, but for other questions, how deep shall we be going? And I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to understand how technical should we be going in solving this.
Facebook, unlike Google, they don't expect you to be technical. I mean, that's my understanding from talking to people that have interviewed with Facebook.
Okay.
So I wouldn't worry too much about it, as long as you have a broad understanding, right, of machine learning. I think that everybody needs to, of how that works a little bit, right?
Okay.
So that's what I would do.
And maybe I have a point actually here.
Sure.
So can we somehow incorporate the a feedback loop into this whole machine learning, where you went ahead with a certain assumption, and then you can dynamically change your scoring based on how the user actually, or the customer reacts to that particular post? Because I mean, I think that is critical in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it looks like a static one. I don't know. Maybe it means that it is actually taking into account the user behavior on these posts. But having a feedback loop from the user behavior back to fed into the machine learning again, it would be helpful.
That I think you need to. My understanding of machine learning is that you have a lot of data that is stacked by all these people, right? And so this is going to be in the billions or maybe in the millions.
Yeah.
This is just one job, right? Maybe you have hundreds, right?
Yes.
If you feed this back, it's going to be overwhelmed by the rest. So that's why I'm calling here a filtering stage, where here you really give a lot of weight to the few sample points that you get from the user. I don't think that having a feedback loop will help here.
Oh, feedback loop just for the user, like
this is sort of like a weighting thing, right? That is going to change the weights. It's going to filter the posts, re-rank them based on the preferences of the user. But I don't want to go too much into this rat hole.
Sure.
Because, they won't expect you to know all this, right?
Okay.
Let's go into more interesting things that a product manager would probably be asked, which is, okay, we have thought about all these, attributes and stuff like that. They may ask you, are there some situations where there are going to be conflicts between what we ranked, how we ranked the post, and what the user actually, would like to see? I think that would be an interesting question, right? Are there any problems? What are possible problems?
I see.
Ranking being wrong.
Oh, so we have to think of consequences of if the ranking goes wrong. Is that the essence of it?
Well, just to give you an example, let's say that. Okay, I had an example before, which is what could happen. Let's see. Yeah, here. Okay, so I may like to see my friends' posts,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't like to see the post of that friend all the time, because maybe I have just one friend that posts all the time, right? Or maybe two friends. Maybe I like to see that post maybe once a week.
Mhm.
Right? So, but the algorithm considers that seeing posts of friends is really good, right?
Yeah.
Like I would prefer it. It's assuming that.
Yeah.
So how can I tell the algorithm, hey, no, I just don't want to see so many posts of this person, right?
I see.
And so those kinds of things, I think that they will ask, right?
Okay.
Or think about a different example.
I think the other thing that comes to my mind is, what if it affects our ad revenue by significant amount by doing this? Okay, maybe you serve the purpose of showing relevant content to the customers, and you have right metrics which show that it is actually increased, the relevancy has actually increased. But what if it has taken a toll on your advertising revenue?
And this goes back to the goal, right? So maybe if the goal is like, we know we're going to take a hit on ad revenue because we're giving preference to the user as opposed to advertisers.
Yeah.
And that could be, probably the answer to that, right? But
Yeah.
how much of a hit?
How much of a hit is the question? Yeah.
How much? I mean, that would be important to know, right?
Yeah.
And can we adjust that, right?
Yeah.
Can we adjust the preferences? Any other issues that you may think? Because this is the moment to brainstorm.
Yeah, I think that comes to mind is the impact on performance. So because of the fact that you are going to do more complicated machine learning in the back end, maybe it impacts your performance and it adversely affects the customer experience, because earlier the post used to be super fast and very responsive. Maybe something happened. We are doing a lot of ML in the back end, which affects the performance. It is possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see, is there, can you guys think of a situation where the algorithm thinks that it's doing the right thing, but in fact is doing the wrong thing?
Bias can be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Machine learning can create a bias that I only get all Democrat related thing, for example, but I don't think Republican, for example.
Bias problem, right? Some examples. What did you say?
Political affinity, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a very good one. Any other thoughts? All right, let's follow up with another question. How do you know that your algorithm is working?
Your engagement goes up.
Metrics.
Yeah, metrics.
Engagement. Okay, and what do you mean by engagement?
The number of posts read or number of posts you engage with, do like, share.
Okay.
The total time spent on Facebook, for example.
What else?
Active users, monthly active users.
I'm sorry, which one?
Monthly active users.
Okay. I would say, number of sessions per day. What else?
Maybe the reported post decreases, you have reduced the amount of irrelevant or abusive post, for example.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Yeah, decrease of abusive post or spam.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically the user has the option to on a particular post they can say whether it's an abusive post or whether it's irrelevant one. I mean, those metrics go down, or if those numbers go down,
Yeah, that's very good.
that's a good sign.
Yep. Any other metrics?
Maybe new users sign up. It's not a direct. It doesn't have a direct correlation. It's an extension of engagement, I would say. Compared to engagement, this is not very important because this is a side effect of what we are doing. But if people think there's more relevant stuff going on Facebook, and it could lead to a spike in new users signing up. But I would say it is not a primary.
Yeah, it's not the primary, but it would be a good thing. All right, cool. All right.
Or more clicks.
Hmm?
It's a win-win situation between advertiser and customer. Maybe because of less relevancy right now, advertisers are not getting enough clicks or enough revenues through Facebook channel. But if that goes up, that means that we are showing more relevant kind of promoted ads or more relevant event information that people are actually signing up or purchasing.
Yeah, you're saying that that's kind of that would be only if, because the preference is we were giving preference to users, which means depreferencing advertisers.
No, I mean, not necessarily, right? Because the Facebook statement is that we are not there to do ad revenue business. We are there to show you relevant posts, but of course, as part of that goal, if our ad revenue goes up, then it's all good, which means that we are giving you right kind of promotion information right
I
when you
wouldn't expect that actually as a metric. I wouldn't expect ad revenue to go up. I mean, if it goes up, it would be fantastic.
Yeah, so it could go up because of people spending more time on Facebook now because they enjoy Facebook more.
Which means we will measure both, right?
Okay. So that is one. And second is a little counterintuitive, that what can happen is that now the advertisers know that their ads will be shown less. So maybe they are creating better ads now.
Ah, that's nice. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So we will have to measure both. If ad revenue goes up, we need to measure time spent, right? And probably check better quality, see if it's due to better quality, right, of ads.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. All right, so let's wrap it up. So I think that, at the high level, what we need to take away from this problem is that it's not your typical product design. It's more like an experience type of question where the product exists and they're asking you, okay, how would you, improve that experience, right? And in this case is by improving the ranking. And then we talked about, okay, if it's about that, then draw the product if you can, the post or whatever feature, in order to remind yourself of the attributes that it's based on. And then looking at those attributes, then you can start thinking, okay, those attributes basically make up the experience, right? And which kinds of attributes should we increase, decrease in terms of the levels? And that's I think the way I would think about this type of problem, right? Which is different than the product design, which has clear segmentations. Any feedback from you guys about this question?
Now, I joined in late. This was the first time I discovered this site, so this is really good. Thanks for this.
Oh, thank you, Nimesh. And Krishna, feedback?
I don't have. I think I learned a lot, just like Nimesh has said. This is awesome kind of exercise, which definitely helps.
Thank you. That's great. So yeah, this is the first time I deal with this kind of question actually, because all of this time I've been doing more product design, the traditional one.
Yeah.
But
Can you tell a little bit about yourself? Sorry, I have no idea. Do you do it as a hobby? You run this company?
no, I started this as so I used to. My background is in computer science. I used to work for HP Labs for many years. Then I did an MBA, and then I at Berkeley, and then I started at Adobe Systems in corporate strategy. But as I was saying before, I wanted to move into product management for a long time. It was difficult, and I bombed my interview with the first one internally, right? So I missed that opportunity, and the reason was because I had no idea, right, of the product management questions. This was like 2.5 years ago or more, and at that point I was like, well, I need to understand and immerse myself into what it takes, right? And that's when I started to see, well, I need to practice with people, and I couldn't find people to practice with. It's difficult, right? So I said, okay, so let me put a meetup and see if there's interest. And people started coming, and then I realized, hey, this could be a way for me to actually learn to build a product. I can make a product where have the calendar, you have mock interviews with everybody, and learn by doing, and at the same time prepare myself, and then go back to the industry. So that's the nature of it. And we started this like 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more, with just the meetup. And then last September, we launched the website. And now, we're having more people, and I see people all over the world, really, on the calendar interviewing, and that's great. So that's where I am, and that's where I come from. So my background is in computer science and HP Labs and strategy, but I am also a really hands-on engineer. And so I like programming, and so what you see on the website, the back end, I spend a lot of time doing that, and I have my front end programmer, my partner, doing the front end part of it.
That's
So
awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
you the product design in itself. We can talk about this as another problem another day.
yeah, sure, definitely. I mean, I'm learning so much about it, right? And we're looking at developing a new UI for the calendar, which is going to provide privacy, and it's going to allow us to customize the calendar, because right now I'm using the Google APIs, but it's just, they don't have not much flexibility in it, right? So that's, I'm excited about that. That's going to be the next thing, right? And we are learning a lot, as well as my partner. I mean, she learned like a lot about web development, right? So it's about learning and loving what we're doing and making a product. And yeah, that's what it's all about, and making a community. We want to make this a very strong community where people actually connect for real, right? Yeah. As opposed to having LinkedIn that, I don't know how the people are more in LinkedIn, that I'm connected with. But here you're going to realize that when you practice with people,
you need to have a FaceTime.
I'm sorry, yes, right? And you're doing something together that is really hard.
Yeah. Because it doesn't give you the feeling of a real interview unless you are talking to a person face to face, and how they emote and everything when you are answering the questions.
And you're going to create really strong professional links here, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it's all in all, I think keeping this community strong, it's what I'm all about.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm not, you might be aware about this. One of my friends for engineering interviews, I've been an engineer, uses this site called Tramp. Yeah, it has been very successful for engineering interviews for exactly same thing.
Oh, that's great. It's called Tramp.
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 Yeah.
All right, I'll check it out.
Yeah. So I was looking for something similar for product management, because it's very subjective rather than objective. Engineering, you usually code. There's an output, well-defined structure, but it's very boring to do this practice on your own. So this is a great idea especially for product management.
Totally. Well, guys, enjoy the site, and give me feedback whenever you want.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Malina.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.